Having a strong, healthy mindset is the one thing that stands between you getting what you want out of life and settling for the cards that you've been dealt. And while scaring people should never be your end goal when it comes to possessing mental resilience, it is a good indicator that you're on the right track. When I was in my early 20s, I had such an instance where I had built a mindset so strong that it scared my family. We were sitting down at my uncle's for dinner, and he and my aunt had just discovered that their son couldn't get a scholarship playing football because of a serious injury that he obtained. They were devastated, naturally, but I was adamant that it was a good thing. I tried to spin it for them. They would say, "This is horrible, his life is ruined." I would say, "No, he's talented, he's driven, and he's gonna do great at anything that he does." They would say, "No, Jay, this is horrible, you don't understand." I would say, "Yes, it is horrible, and I do understand, but he needs you to be supportive and to try to find a solution to this problem." This went on for several rounds of debate, and after about 8 back and forths of opposing views, it crescendoed into my uncle screaming enough. I was blindly optimistic, and it scared the hell out of them. Now, since then, I've adjusted my approach, and I've begun to simply listen and to let people feel how they feel in similar situations. But it does beg the question, why were they afraid of my optimism and a problem-solving attitude? This video is an attempt to reverse engineer that mindset that I arrived at in my early 20s and what I've learned since then that doesn't actually scare people, but inspires them to be receptive and open to mental resilience and to actually push them to change their own outlook. When you first stumble upon mental resilience, you want everyone to know how to experience the same outlook that you found. You feel as though you've discovered some secret to a prosperous life, and you want to help those around you to experience the same level of thought. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. To possess a truly strong mindset, you need to direct your attention inward and to deeply understand people. You need to understand that the path that you walk is yours and the path that others walk is theirs. If you can save yourself and then lead by example, this is what having a strong mindset is. That's the real secret. The first consideration to make when you're trying to build a strong mind is to take up a meditation practice. I've touched on this before, and it isn't something that can be taught. It needs to be discovered for yourself, and then you need to embark on a personal journey of self-reflection. Meditation comes in all shapes and sizes. You can sit in a room and say Om for 45 minutes. You can put on a pre-recorded 15-minute meditation. You can do a walking meditation. You can simply meditate on your dog eating her supper, or you can meditate on the flow of traffic and pedestrians on a busy street. Meditation is the act of focusing on one thing for a prolonged amount of time and forcing yourself to remain in the moment. Traditional meditation is the act of focusing on your breath and letting thoughts float in, be acknowledged, and then stored for later or released for good. I meditate every morning for 15 minutes, and when I do, I'm given the gift of recognizing and acknowledging tiny instances and memories from the previous day. I'm then faced with the decision of keeping them intact and using them for today's goals, or more times than not, releasing them because what happened yesterday doesn't serve me today. Being afraid of something is a combination of inaction and overthinking. The term worrying yourself sick is a real thing, and it can be easily disarmed through meditation. The solution to every problem you face comes in the form of resisting the urge to overthink every single possible outcome and to take specific actions in specific directions. That's it. Now, beyond just sitting around and focusing on your breath, the other part of possessing a strong mindset is to take specific and focused action. This can best be understood in the serenity prayer. God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Hearing and understanding this prayer takes acknowledgement and intention. You acknowledge what has happened to you, and then you fill yourself with the intention of overcoming the challenge. And while this prayer makes it seem like there are either changes you need to accept or things you need to change, more often than not, it's actually a process that includes both of these options. First comes the acceptance part. If you get a football injury and you need to change your life path, you first need to accept what has happened to you. The injury happened. There's no going back. You can play it over and over again in your mind, again and again. If only you had stepped 1 foot to the left, this wouldn't have happened. You can cycle through the 10 years you've put into the sport, and now it's all for nothing. You will have these thoughts. This is normal. But eventually you have to accept that the path you were on is now gone. It's done. The issue with the serenity prayer is that it's incomplete. It should say something like, God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change my circumstances after I've accepted the loss, and the wisdom to know when I'm in each phase of that journey. In the original prayer, it makes it seem like life is black and white, as though you can't play football ever again, and that you need to spend the rest of your life simply accepting that. But that's not how life works. We lose things, we feel sad about it, and we get used to living with the fact that we can't have it. And then we move on and we find something else to be excited and passionate about. After you've meditated on losing something, you can now move on to action and changing your current situation, rebuilding in a new direction with whatever skills, objects, and ideas you already have at your disposal. The real secret in building a strong mindset is possessing the ability to let go of something with a smile on your face and move on with your life in a new direction with no regrets, no distress, and no fear. Referring back to the serenity prayer, God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let's consider the last part, developing the wisdom to know the difference between when it's appropriate to take action and when it's appropriate to accept your fate. When something bad happens, say you lose a deal you've been trying to sign for a year with a client, you will need to accept that this happened. The period of time this takes is different for everybody. For some, maybe it's a few days. For others, maybe it's a few months. In some extreme cases, this can affect you for a year. But why? Remember, having the serenity to accept things you can change. If you lose something like an opportunity with a client, there is nothing you can do. Maybe you've even tried to remedy it. You've tried time and time again to close the deal after it fell through. I find it helps to go out in the countryside and look up at the stars. Do you even realize that each one of those stars is a sun? Understanding this on a deep level helps you accept how insignificant you are and how insignificant your problems are. Beyond stargazing, there are 8.2 billion people on this planet. There are infinite possibilities for things to happen to you and those around you. There are 340 million people in the United States, and there are just under 8 million people living in New York City. If you live in New York, that's 8 million chance encounters with people who will affect your life one way or another. So when one tiny thing happens with 1 or 2 people in one tiny moment, it literally means nothing. You only think it does because your mind starts racing through everything that happened to break down the opportunity that you lost, where you screwed up, and what you could have done differently. So what can we do about this? Just don't think about it. Having mental resilience is about having the self-discipline to think about the things that serve you, like where you should live, how you should structure your marketing strategy, what words you should say in a video, and not thinking about the things that don't serve you. Things like why somebody treated you poorly, why someone broke up with you, why you got hurt, and what you could have done differently. If you're a creative person, then a quote by Stephen King really helps to better understand this. He said that as a creative, if you aren't making things, then you're actively creating stories about yourself. This leads to fear, depression, and inaction. So if you want the answer to building a mindset so strong that it scares people, you need to get obsessed. You need to become obsessed with forward momentum and crafting your ideal life. You need to be so obsessed with it that you don't even have the space or the capacity to think about things that don't serve you on that journey. The hardest part of anything is starting. So if you've been struggling to begin down a path you've been considering for a long time, just begin. Just take the first step, and then the second step, and then the third. You'll find that once you've built up momentum, it's actually a lot easier to do the thing than to continue to not do it and to live in fear. I'm JayAshcroft. Thank you.